Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Gonna continue on the reading that we got abruptly stopped at last time, so we're gonna be starting in Genesis chapter 3. I haven't loaded the pipe yet or anything, so I figured we'd do that together. I haven't smoked my meerschaum in, since the last video. I've just been smoking my briar. I feel like I've really been enjoying my briar ever since I got the meerschaum. Almost more having the, what's the right word? It literally just left my mind. Having the perspective of what smoking a meerschaum is like. It allows me to have a bit more appreciation for my briarwood. But I still do love my meerschaum. And since I haven't smoked it in quite a while, I imagine this will be a more pleasant smoke than not. And what I have here is some, I love the smell of it. I really hated this blend the first time I smoked it, but now it's actually quickly becoming one of my favorite. It's Golden Days of Yore by, starts with a C. It's like C and D. Collins and I don't know, you guys will probably know. Apparently this is a blend that got released last year and they re-released it this year because of its popularity, and I love it. One thing I've really started to notice with this blend is the different aromas it has going on. It's got vanilla for sure is in there. It's got some like plum kind of taste going on there, some smell. It's got some other like darker berries kind of smell. It's like a sweeter, more sweeter than not smell overall for sure. So really been enjoying this a lot. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites for sure. Let's see, take off this Band-Aid because I haven't ever done that with a Band-Aid. Pretty excited to get into Genesis chapter 3. From where we got cut off last time, it's the first time we're actually introduced to the primary protagonist, the devil. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how he gets introduced from the interlinear side of things, and also what direction the first man and woman are going to take it. I will say, whenever I was reflecting on Genesis 1 and 2 the other day, I had a thought of something I wanted to bring up to you guys that I didn't realize at the time when we were going through it. But you know, when God takes the dirt and he breathes life into it to make man, I feel like that is just such a brilliant metaphor for how he can pick you up wherever you're at in your life at your lowest and breathe life into you. I think a cat's getting in. So yeah. Sorry, the cat distracted me with my thought pretty hard. I live deep out in the country, so like, I don't know. Yeah, it was Milo. What's up, Mama? Anyways, as I was saying, it's truly a very beautiful metaphor for not only how he created the first man, but how he is still moving through man, through all people, picking them up at their lowest when they feel like dirt, or they feel dirty, and breathing in brand new life and making them feel clean and have a purpose and bring this whole new side of things to them, you know? That's kind of like something I thought about a couple days ago, and I'm sure several of you have probably already thought of that before, but I love how beautifully written and metaphorical the Bible tends to be. And so I always try to look for good analogies that I can use to relate to the things that it's saying and talking about at the time. All right, well, I think that's just about good. I appreciate you guys hanging out again. Plans for the channel. I'm not going to talk about the channel too much because, like I said, this is really more geared towards me wanting to leave some kind of something for my kids in the event that something ill befalls me, unfortunately. Not expecting that to happen, but in that case, as I spoke on in my ode to my mother's passing, I would have loved and cherished to have had something like this where I could really remember through the years, how she thought and what was important to her and all those things. Not that I don't remember them, it's just like, I don't know, it's weird. It's hard to talk about, but it is what it is. All right, so I'm gonna get this all lit up and then we're gonna hop into Genesis 3. As a recap, if you don't watch the other videos, which is totally fine, I don't really care. God created the earth, He created the creepers and the crawlies and all the beasts. He had the first man, He lined up all the animals and the creepy crawlies, had the first man name them all the way through, which is crazy. If you really think about the gravity of that. He must have never got exhausted, and he must have been extremely creative to keep coming up with names after just being born. You know what I'm saying? What an incredible person that must have been. And then we're about to get into the snake, but oh yeah. So all the animals and everything wasn't really a good enough partner for the first man. For whatever reason, he didn't care much for them as far as having someone to rely on and to be companion-like with, above and beyond like what you would just be like with an animal, So that's when God put the man to sleep, took his rib out, and from his rib he fashioned woman, the first woman, which is really a cool analogy because it symbolizes the unity and, the beauty of what marriage is and how man and woman are made for one another, essentially. Because we come from one another. We have to be made for one another. All right, let me get this lit up. Where am I? I also have a really big order of tobaccos I've never tried before coming in from pipeandcigar.com. That'll get here tomorrow, so I'll probably do a unboxing video of all of them. And then you can expect reviews of those to be coming out intermittently along with its readings. I did also order 16 ounces of vanilla custard from Sutliff, which was the last package they had of that, and it got back ordered. Somebody else bought it, I guess, right before I did. So I purchased another 3 16-ounce bags of, I think, Frosty Mint, either coffee or hot chocolate. I think it was hot chocolate. And one other one, I can't remember off the top of my head. So hopefully those actually get sent. The one thing I will say I don't really care for about Pipes and Cigars is like their policy is they're gonna wait up to 120 days to refund me if they don't get the vanilla custard back in stock. And it's like, that's great. I'd rather have the vanilla custard than the money because that's what I purchased it for. I wanted it. But at the same time, it's like, can you guys just just let me choose another product to switch to that y'all have in stock that y'all could probably send to me sooner than 4 months from now, you know? If it takes that long to come back, because I know Sutliff and McBaron got bought by STG, so I know they're still in production currently, but it's more of like, let me try their other stuff, you know, so I know what I may or may not want to purchase, and what I can hope to look forward to STG continuing to produce of their blends, you know. So, I mean, whatever. I'll just wait, I guess, and if it doesn't work, I get my money back, you know. I will say I love the way that this bowl lights in comparison to my briar. It feels a lot more elevated. All right. Shall we begin the journey into Genesis chapter 3? All right. Introduction of the snake. All right. And the serpent was cunning above every beast of the field which had been made by God. And he said to the woman, "Is it so? God has said that you shall not eat from any of the tree of the garden." And said the woman to the serpent, "Of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, had said God, not shall you eat of it." "Nor shall you touch it, lest you die." So not only should they not eat, but if they even touch it, they'll die. And said the serpent to the woman, "Not surely you shall die, for God knows that in the day of you eating of it, that you shall be opened, and your eyes shall be as God, knowing good and evil." And saw the woman that was good the tree for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and that it was desirable to make you wise. And she took of its fruit and ate it. Well, I gotta say, that was rather easy for him to convince her. It was literally a sentence. I always had this idea that there was a bit more back and forth, but this really speaks to the cunning of the temptation of the serpent. and how well spoken the serpent was. It's also very interesting to use the identifier of this creature as a serpent. So she was asphyxiated with the pleasant look of the food, and to the eyes it was very desirable, and so she took it. We have that happen fairly often in life, I believe. Most things that you take out of desire don't always work out well, depending upon the level of desire. And then moving on, you can see the first man was peer pressured by his wife at the time, because it says here that she gave also to her husband with her, and he ate. And were opened the eyes of both of them, and they both knew that they were naked all of a sudden. So they all of a sudden knew that they were naked, which I guess speaks to the purity of how they recognized themselves prior to eating the apple. They must have believed that there was nothing wrong with them. You know, this kind of speaks to hiding aspects of your body that you may be ashamed of, that to God never intended for anyone to be ashamed of, until someone ate of the fruit and it made their eyes open, and then they were peer pressured into eating it with others so they didn't feel as guilty, I suppose, for the wrongdoing. Pretty interesting. It's really an analogy that can be used for many things in life. It's good teaching. But after they saw they were naked, they sewed the leaves of the fig tree and made for themselves girdles. And they heard the sound of God walking up and down in the garden at the breeze of the day. The breeze of the day, that's gotta be like noon, right? Also, how incredible to just hear God walking up and down the garden during the day. Having that kind of a relationship with Him. Let's see, where were we? Oh, yeah. And they hid themselves, the man and his wife, from the face of God in the middle of the trees of the garden. So they hid in the middle. So it said earlier that the tree of knowledge was in the middle of the garden, and now they're hiding themselves in, I guess, the other trees surrounding it, around the area, because they probably just ate, right? God knew they were going to do it. He was probably just hanging around, just like, it's just a matter of time till I see them doing something they're not supposed to do, till they do the one thing I asked them not to do, which they could not pass up. They felt like they were missing something, but what they didn't realize was they already had everything. Isn't that so true in life as well? That's why I think there's something so beautiful about reminiscing in the past. You never realize what you had until you don't have it anymore. Having that perspective kind of changes everything. You know, whether you were rich and you lost all your money by being ignorant with it, or if you had a great love that you've lost and now you no longer have that individual in your life anymore, grass is always greener, type of thing. That's definitely what was being anticipated here. and called God to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "Your sound I have heard in the garden, and I was afraid. So I heard you coming, God, and I was scared because I was naked. And so I hid myself." And God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Of the tree which I have told you not to eat from have you eaten?" I mean, we're cooked. You know what I'm saying? We are cooked. And said the man, "The woman who you gave to be with me, she has given to me of the tree, and I ate it." Well, that's immediately a little ridiculous. I mean, sure, she did give you a bit of the tree. Why don't you take some responsibility here, man? You're the one who also partook of it. Unless it was like there's more information that's missing here. Like maybe she was extra deceptive with it, you know, maybe she was being a little too forward with it. Didn't tell him what fruit it was, even though he should know because God pointed it out to him first. He told her later not to eat it. And then there she goes off and eats it. But also, you know, if that's the case, and I could have been misinterpreting the reading, but that's kind of cool to think about if that is the case, because that would mean like man getting told directly by God not to do this thing, and then you have woman being told by man not to do this thing, women being how they are naturally, went against his wishes in this particular story. I'm not saying in general. I'm not trying to get in trouble with my wife if she ever listens to this. But it's very interesting how that could have been the course of action, because that kind of changes the perspective and the dynamic here of Eve not being directly, or the first woman, I keep saying Eve, it didn't say that in here, so I'm trying to stay true to what this is saying. The first woman, you know, getting directly told by man not to eat of it, you know, and the serpent tricking her, because like, what does he know? He was just a guy, you know, maybe there's some of that going on. So who told you were naked? You must have eaten of the tree, said God. And then the man pointed fingers at the woman. She gave it to me and I ate it. And said God to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" And said the woman, "The serpent deceived me and I ate." And God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, you are cursed more than all the beasts and more than every animal of the field. Your belly shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. An eternity I will set between you and between the woman, between you and between the woman, and between your seed and between her seed." Wow, that's a little difficult to understand for a layman like myself. But what I do think is interesting, just to pause for a second, is God formed man out of dust, and now he's cursing the serpent to eat nothing but dust. Basically saying, I mean, obviously, verbatim, that your life is going to be awful. You're never going to amount to the dust that I breathe the life into. And that shall forever be your punishment of wondering, most likely, why you were never good enough and why you could never make it to the level I've made it. But I'm going to read this again because that was kind of confusing. And dust you shall eat for all the days of your life. And enmity I will set between you and between the woman, and between your seed and between her seed. So he's creating a gap between the serpent's seed and the woman's seed. You know, now that I'm reading that more, that almost sounds like another effort from God to separate us from the serpent yet again. By cursing the serpent, who has already deceived us once, he doesn't want us to be deceived by the serpent, because obviously that causes negative repercussions on ourselves and our life. So now he's attempting again to separate us from the serpent in an attempt to save us yet again from whatever plans the serpent has for us. He will bruise you to the head, and you shall bruise him of the heel. He will bruise you in the head, and you shall bruise him in the heel. It's a very interesting sentence to throw in there. Not quite sure what that means. I assume later down the line in the Bible, that will maybe make more sense. Maybe he's saying like, this to humanity is just a bruise on the head, but because he bruised us on the head, spawning the seed, being split from him and more from God and our connection with God, this causes the story to unfold the way God knows it will, and as he predicted, inciting that because you bruise their head, I will give them Jesus to save them, which is going to bruise your heel, which is arguably worse to some degree, depending on the head injury, of course. Eye for an eye. And he said to the woman, greatly will I increase greatly I will increase your sorrow and your conception and sorrow. You shall bear sons. So I will increase your sorrow and the conception of what you bear sons. And your husband shall be your desire, and he shall rule over you. So I guess because she's the one who messed up initially, this is like a punishment from God, that the first woman should be ruled over by the man, which is interesting because I guess because she was the one initially tempted, God no longer trusts her to make 100% of the decisions. And to the man he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and you have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, not shall you eat from it, or shall you be cursed. Oh wait, not shall you eat from it, shall be cursed the ground because of you. And sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life, and thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you. And you shall eat of the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat the bread until your return to the ground. For out of it you have been taken, for dust are you, and to dust you shall return. Wow. Okay, I kind of wish I was Eve right now. You know, the first woman, the cursing of man there sounded way worse. I'm assuming this is like before this, it was like what heaven is supposed to be, where I would imagine eating and partaking in things was just something you did for pleasure. But now it's something you must do to survive, which is really cool if you think about it, because that causes nothing really to be pleasurable anymore, because things you're forced to do out of necessity can remove a lot of that magic and joy that you can get out of it had it not been a necessity. Had it just been something you enjoyed doing and it wasn't something you had to do, you tend to get, more fulfillment out of those things. So what he's really doing here is taking away all the fulfillment of life away from man, because now we have to be forced, due to this action, to go and, till the earth and make sure we have food to eat, or we starve to death and things are horrible, or we get diseased and famined and all that. Very, very interesting. Terrible outcome. A little mad at this little weasel serpent. What a jerk. Freaking idiot. And called the man the name of his wife Eve, because she became of the mother of all living. Okay, well now we got Eve's name. I can start calling her Eve. Whew. Sorry, I'm still just kind of shuddering from that curse, man. Can you imagine being in the Garden of Eden, having committed the first deception against God, which is what sin is. He has his rules for what he thinks, you should or shouldn't do to please him. And you create this first deception. I mean, dude, this is so much wilder, because it's like all you know at this point in time from what we've read is the Garden of Eden, the plants in it, the animals you've named, and God and Eve. But you're getting all that thrown away. You're getting cast away into the fear of the unknown, while also having to live with resentment towards your partner and that overwhelming feeling of disappointment of your Father, your Creator. It's really a perfect analogy for how kids are supposed to obey their parents, because if you disobey as a child for too much, you can really piss your parents off to the point where they kick you out. And then you're kind of going off into the greater unknown with this ego and maybe a little bit of resentment if someone else guided you in that direction, like a serpent. You're a little pissed off at the serpent because he put you in this position, and now you're forced to face it, And I think that's pretty powerful statement there. Pretty terrible. All right, so now we know her name's Eve, and because she became of the mother of all living, so now she's the mother of all of the living, and made God for the man and his wife coats of skin, clothe them. Oh my gosh! What? That's the craziest line we've read so far. Are you serious? What? They didn't have skin? But they had ribs. And God talked about earlier how he sewed up the first man after taking the rib out. Well, not that he sewed him up, that the whatever he had around him formed back together. So like, very interesting that it would be this specific about what happened, because it's like, why would you clothe yourself? You didn't even have skin, bro. And then all of a sudden, well, that would be a huge, like, pardon my language, but like middle finger or F you to them. Dude, can you imagine not having skin and all of a sudden you have skin? I can't. I've only ever had skin. That would be weird. That would be really weird. That would probably be terrifying, actually, now that I think about it. Wow. And then clothed them. So, I mean, God's doing the most here. He's like, well, you messed up as much as possible. Go figure it out yourself, since you think you're so smart and you have all this ability and you have all this faith in your fellow woman, to trust her over me, obviously. Go figure it out. Let's see how well you do, you know? I'll even help you out. Here's some skin you've never had before. Yeah, enjoy that. I know that's gonna be weird. Enjoy it. And then here's some clothes, because you made your first set of clothes out of like freaking fig leaves. That's weird. I wonder what the first set of clothes looked like. It's probably better than fig leaves. And said God, behold, the man has become one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also from the tree of life. Dude, this is getting crazy. I don't know if you guys are as excited hearing this as I am reading this. Probably not. It's probably a little bit more boring, listening to the echoes in this room of me reading this, but this is freaking crazy. Behold, the man has become one of us, knowing the good and evil, knowing the difference between good and evil, one of us. So God knows what's good and what's evil. Now man knows what's good and what's evil. Before, man didn't know what good and evil was. Man was just kind of like obediently following whatever God said. But then, you know, you deceive God, and then he's like, all right, go for it. You know, now you know what's good and what's bad. You make the judgment for yourself. I'm sure it'll work out for you, like as well as it did for me. Really kind of a cool speech here. And then also he needs to take his hand and, you know, he needs to grab from the tree of life. So it's like you're gonna eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but you're also gonna eat from the tree of life here, because you can't live forever now. You're not a god. You're not God. You cannot live forever. You're not one of the original created beings that God created. You're not, well, you are one of the original beings God created now, but now you're cursed. Which is really interesting, because I'm assuming, I make a lot of assumptions when reading, because I'm not a biblical scholar by any means. This is kind of like first impressions series of reading an interlinear Bible after, you know, growing up in church and losing my faith and coming back to it, and this whole testimony journey, which one of these days maybe I'll share. But reading it like this, man, it's so emboldening, the words that they're using to describe the scene here. Wow. All right, so he's got to eat from the tree now, of life. There you go, man. Good luck. And eat and live forever. Okay. Sent him, therefore, God out of the garden. Wait a second. The good and evil, and now, last he put forth his hand and take also from the tree of life, and eat and live. Wait, eat and live and forever. Oh, okay. Another metaphor for having to eat forever. To live. God sent out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground which he was taken from, and drove out the man. And he lodged at the east of the Garden of Eden the cherubim, and flaming sword, the whirling round to guard the way of the tree of life. Okay. So this is kind of like a closing scene, I'm assuming, of the Garden of Eden. Cherubim. I think those are like the animal-headed angels, defenders of God under his command. What an eccentric being God is. How cool to see these things. You know, we often fantasize about being in a more magical world, but I don't know why you would ever think the world you're in right now isn't magical. It very much so is. I'm gonna read that a bit more, because this is the first time we've ever been introduced to like any kind of weapon in the Bible, and it's on fire, which is even cooler. How BA, you know what I'm saying? And he lodged, okay, the man lodged and he at east at the Garden of Eden, the cherubim. So he basically cast them away from the Garden of Eden to the east. And the cherubim with the flaming sword whirling was to guard the way of the tree of life. So he didn't want anybody or anything else making this mistake. It doesn't say so here in the Bible, but I'm assuming that he also cast out the animals. Unless the animals he's talking about are some of the cherubim, which I really doubt. The cherubim seems like he knows God pretty well. He's more of like an insider type dude. Doesn't seem like this is a new thing for him. You know, I would have been like, man, where was that guy earlier? I believe cherubim are also the ones that are guarding the Ark of the Covenant as well. But that's something that we'll talk about later. When that comes up in the New Testament, I believe. Alright, and now we're on to chapter 4. And man now knew Eve, his wife. So he took her, for lack of a better word. And she conceived and bore Cain, and said, Gotten I have a man with the help of God, Jehovah. And she continued to bear his brother Abel. Okay, I'm connecting the dots a bit more now. So before this, Eve was never able to have children. So I don't really think, based on what we've read up to now, that the original plan was for there to ever be more than just Adam, until Adam got bored. And then the plan was never to be more than Eve, until they deceived God and went against his wishes. Then God said, fine, I will split your seed from this seed of Satan. And from there, you will continue to have children. Okay, interesting. And then Eve has 2 boys, Cain and Abel. And became Abel a shepherd of the flocks, and Cain became a tiller of the ground. Good job splitting the work up. Way to take a positive route on this. And it was in the end of the days that brought Cain from the fruit of the ground an offering to Jehovah. And Abel brought him also from the firstlings of his flock. So Cain brought some fruit. Abel brought some baby animals, the firstlings of his flock, from their fats. And looked God to Abel and to his offering, and Cain and to his offering he did not look. Oh, sorry, Cain. Your fruit ain't good around here, bro. I like meat. That's what God said. I want real sacrifice. I don't want a vegetarian world. God didn't even look at it. I mean, that's gotta be a slap in the face, man. This poor guy. He's been struggling to till the land. He's probably been feeding freaking Abel. And then he's just like, oh no, Cain's probably been, feeding Abel with some of the fruit of the land or whatever he's been growing. And then God just didn't even look at him. Didn't even look at his offering. And that made Cain glow. Also, what does that even mean to have God look at your offering? I'm assuming that means like he found it to be favorable, but how would they know? Unless God was talking to them, which is interesting because like God did say like I'm casting y'all out, but he never said I'm like fully leaving you or anything. Because he never left us. He never did. He never will. That's why he's the best. He's unconditional. And so many more things that we're going to discover together. Poor guy, man. And glowed Cain greatly, and fell his face, and said God to Cain angrily, why glow have you, and why is fall in your face? So God is talking to them. Okay, cool. So God said to Cain, the weaker of the two, the grower of the plants, why are you so mad, bro? Why are you mad? Why is your face fallen? Not is there, if you do well, exaltation? Okay, so if you do well, is there not exaltation? Is there not a greater prize for the things you have done than just for me to look favorably over this offering? I set my pipe down. And if not, well, you do at the door of sin is crouching, and toward you its desire, but you should rule over it. And talked with Cain and Abel his brother, and as they were in the field, rose up Cain against Abel his brother and killed him. What? Bro, okay. I gotta tell you about the Bible right now, at least Genesis. Dude, they don't do any kind of setting up. Holy crap. Can you imagine? Cain gives an offering of fruits and vegetables, and Abel gives an offering of meat, lambs, whatever he did, whatever his flock is. It doesn't specify it here in this specific text. And then, Cain's glowing, or Abel's glowing because, God looked upon his offering with favor and not Cain. God was maybe hoping Cain would take this as a learning lesson that, hey man, you gotta eat meat or, you're not gonna do well in this life. But instead, Cain got mad that he wasn't given the same stuff as Abel. He wasn't in the same light as the parent, the father figure here, which is God. And because of that, he took it upon himself to just straight up murder his brother. Even though God literally just told him, if you end up doing well with your sacrifices, is there not exaltation anyways? Why are you competing? You're going to be exalted regardless because you're making an attempt at an offering. Even though it may not be as favored, you're still going to get the same reward in the end. which is, love from the Father, I would imagine, is the best reward. And if you don't, sin is crouching at the door. That is a little bit of foreshadowing, because literally in the next 5 or 6 words, it's just like, it's crouching toward you in its desire, but you shall rule over it. God kind of gave him like a pep talk, was like, hey man, this sin's about to take over your life. This desire for you to be better than your brother is about to take over your life to a negative point, which is going to cause a descent of you. But you're strong, man. You're capable. You're Cain. You're able to overcome this. And then the next thing God knows is Cain starts fighting with Abel and kills him. And said God to Cain, where is your brother? And said, I do not know. I don't know where he is, man. I'm not my brother's keeper. And he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. Wow. That's quite vivid imagery. The voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. And now cursed are you more than the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood. From when your hand tilled the ground, not again it will give strength to you. A vagabond, a fugitive, you shall be on the earth. Vagabond, I don't know what that word means. Somebody in the comments, if you made it this far into the video, could you tell me what vagabond means in this context? That'd be great to know. And said Cain to God, is my punishment greater than I can bear? Lo, you have driven me out today from the face of the earth, and from the face of your face I shall be hidden. And I shall be a vagabond and a fugitive on the earth, and it will be anyone who finds me shall kill me. And said to him God, if anyone kills Cain, 7-fold he shall be avenged. If anyone kills Cain, 7-fold he shall be avenged. Cain shall be avenged? So essentially God's threatening whatever people there are at this point in time that we don't know about, or other Nephilim, or whatever creatures are roaming the earth, whatever God's decided was acceptable at the time, we don't know all that context. That if anyone kills Cain and doesn't let him suffer from this decision he made of fighting and killing his brother, they shall suffer 7 times over what Cain has suffered for doing this. And on Cain a mark, God said, that so that if anyone should kill him, or if anyone found him who went out and came from the... Okay, so he put a mark on him, saying like, don't kill this person. You kill this person, you're gonna have to deal with me. He put his like seal on him. And out from the presence of the Lord went Cain, and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. And knew Cain his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. Oh, cool, we know about Enoch. Well, I do. I'm sure you do too if you're listening to this, and you've been listening to this for this long. And he built a city, and he called it in the name according to his son's name, Enoch. So he had Enoch, he built a city, Enoch, cool. And born was Enoch to Irad, and Irad fathered Mahulel. And Mahulel fathered, oh gosh, we're getting into some genealogy here. I'll probably speed. This is probably a little bit less philosophical and a bit more genealogy, but I'll try my best to pronounce these names. Okay, so from Enoch, okay, and was born to Enoch, Irad. So Irad is Enoch's son or daughter. And Irad fathered Mahul. Mahul is Irad's son, I'm assuming. They fathered Methuel, and Methuel fathered Lamech, and took himself to Lamech 2 wives. So Lamech had 2 wives, and the name of the first was Ada, and the name of the second was Zillah. Zillah is kind of a cool name. And bore Ada Jabal, and he was the father of those living in the tents and of the livestock, and his brother's name Jubal. So they had Jabal and Jubal. That's kind of annoying. He was the father of those playing the harp and the organ. Okay. So one of the brothers, obviously one of the brothers, Jabal was actually doing stuff with his life. And Jubal was just the father of those playing the harp and the organ, the musical beat. Maybe there's more context to that I'm not understanding. And Zillah also she bore Tubal-Cain, the hammerer of every engraving of every tool of bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, wives of you, Lamech, to listen my words. For a man killed I have my love. Listen to me, Lamech, for a man I have killed, because of my wound. Because of a wound I forgave him young, when he was young. Okay, this is like really hard to read right now. I don't know why this all of a sudden got so difficult. For a man I have killed, and a wound because of a young man is for my hurt, for 7-fold is Cain avenged, and Lamech 77. And knew Adam again, his wife. Oh, so I guess because I think what this is trying to say is because Lamech is a descendant of Cain, not really directly in this context, but somewhat, that because Cain killed his brother, anyone who kills Cain will get, 7-fold the punishment. They're saying anyone who avenges Cain and Lamech, they will get 77-fold the punishment. So it's kind of like talking about how the descent of the generations become more and more punished for the murdering of the wrong people that God put their sign on, I guess. I could be totally reading that out of context. That doesn't really seem that great or accurate to me. And knew Adam again, his wife. And she bore... Okay, so Adam is still freaking alive. Holy crap. Wait, what? So we've had 6 generations of people, and Adam is still with his wife. And she bore a son and called him Seth. For God has appointed another seed of me, and in place of Abel. Okay, so Seth was the born again replacement of Abel, because Cain obviously continued to live and have many kids, because Cain killed him. And to Seth he was also born a son, and his son was called Enos. Then it was begun to call on the name of Jehovah. All right. I think that's a good place to stop for tonight. The video is pretty much an hour long. But what an incredible set of events that led up to right now. Truly, I am baffled by a couple of the sentences there that I had never heard before or thought of in that context. Let me get one more light here. So, you found out you were naked, but you didn't have skin. God decides to give you skin and give you clothes. He casts you out to the east. He guards Eden with a cherubim. So that nobody may enter it again. Then their first boys that they have a dispute over winning God's favor. They both think they're doing the best that they can. One's raising livestock, the other one's tilling the earth to raise food. Because now they're cursed to have to eat forever until they die. Which had to be quite the concept of understanding good and evil. You know, maybe that's what the deal was, you know. Maybe they could have lived forever because they didn't have the idea of dying. But now that they know about death, now they have to eat, now they have to nourish their bodies, they're not as reliant upon God for all the fulfillment that they need spiritually. They're trying to fulfill themselves, and it created this quick descent of man that Satan, who was jealous, the serpent who was jealous of the attention man was getting at the time, caused. But because of that, you know, the serpent must have thought he had a huge victory that day over God. But little did God know that, little did the serpent know that instead he was really creating his own doom, because now it's not just God hanging out with Adam and Eve like it originally was going to be. Now it's going to be God hanging out with millions and millions and even billions of people that are all descendants of his original creation. So I talk about, you know, whether the serpent was jealous of the attention they were getting or what, you know. We don't really know at this point in time. There was not enough context there. But, man, talk about a crazy deal there. And then God's like, well, here, enjoy having skin, you know, and here's some clothes, and go on out there and figure it out for yourself, since you know better than me. Since you know more than I know and have not heeded the warnings I have given you. Good luck. And then the descent of men occurs, you know, you got Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel because Abel's favored by God because of the choice he made in life of what to raise, what to sacrifice, you know. He found it more honorable to be an animal that had a soul than to just be plants that don't have a soul, according to the Bible. You know, that's an interesting way to go about it. And then God warns him. He says, hey man, don't fall into your temptation of your sin. This is the second time God is warning man, stop sinning, or bad things are going to come of it. And what happens? He murders his brother out of anger, and then goes on to have like 12 kids. Well, it was like 7, I think. I wasn't counting. And then Adam and Eve have another son after they've had 7 generations of kids. Like, how old are these people? Things must have been way different back then for sure than they are now, as far as how long women are fertile and whatnot, and how long men are fertile, you know. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you guys listening to this long form reading and hearing out my thoughts. If you guys have anything you'd like to add or any comments or anything, please do. I enjoy the interaction. It's very nice. So thank you, and I will see you guys again next time. Peace.